Chapter 2.
The Unsaid Love. On the vast bed of river Krishna was located the grand kingdom of Surishila, the golden capital of Urdhvaga dynasty. With its boundaries spread over thousands of miles and its popularity over hundreds of other kingdoms for its exquisite infrastructure. Expensive highways, resources in profusion and fertile land that poured unconstrained wealth on Surishila's citizens, letting them live contently with peace and harmony among all. Gods and their blessings in nature had always abundantly blessed the ruler of the kingdom, King Vajraveer, who lived in palace of Surishila with his two wives, Queen Balakrishna and Queen Kusumati, and his little daughter Rupalakshmi from Queen Balakrishna. There was a magnificent pond named Brahmasarovar in his kingdom. It was conceived by King Vajraveer's decree of appreciation for art and architecture, which majestically added to the city's opulence right from its heart, the center location point of the city. This acquisitively enormous pond was always affluent with fresh and sweet water, whose quite calm surface was always covered with a multicolored sheet of hundreds of various lotuses and water lilies. Flocks of elegant ducks, shoals of bright-colored fish, and bale of turtles made their abode in it. The citizens offered water to Lord Sun from its fresh water during the time of their morning prayers, and it also provided for the water supplies for their daily domestic use. Such was the purity of water of Brahmasarovar. Every year during the month of Bhadrapad, Brahmasarovar took its full bloom from the 8th day of Krishna Paksh, waning moon, till the 8th day of Shukla Paksh, waxing moon, to celebrate the festivals of Shri Krishna Jayanti, the birthday of celebration of Lord Krishna, and Radhika Ashtami, respectively, the birthday celebration of Goddess Radha. It was that auspicious day of Radhika Ashtami that year when the city was aesthetically decked up like the most beautiful bride in the whole universe. There was always some strange zest in the hearts of people, especially the young maidens, to commemorate the birth anniversary of Goddess Radha, the very dearest consort of Lord Krishna, whose selfless emotion and unconditional love had won over the Supreme Lord. The girls would perform rituals and ceremonies in front of the idol of the goddess Radha with utmost devotion and zeal. Perhaps because this day also honors the selfless bond of love between Shri Krishna and Radha, symbolic of a unique relationship between God and human, which is as much as necessary to induce the young beating hearts. The young and beautiful maidens would adorn the idol of Goddess Radha with the most charming clothes, precious jewels, and fresh jasmine and rose flowers. The sheer grandiosity of Bhog Prasad was vastly varied foods and dishes would surround the idol from their fronts till the inner edge of the temple. However, a vegetable of Arbi, taro root, was always the center of varying spectrum of the dishes. Songs and prayers were sung to offer to Radha along with the special melodies for Sri Krishna, as both are incomplete without each other. The celebrations were so resplendent in the kingdom that it would suffice to fade away the brightness of the star in that clear night. Queen Kusumati, along with her childhood friends come special attendants, who had been sent by her mother to be with her even after her marriage with King Vajraveer to take personal care of her, worshipped Goddess Radha and celebrated the rest of the day with loads of fun and pleasure, singing, dancing, feeding on celebration offerings, and doing charity for the poor by distributing goods and clothes. People of Surishilas call Kusumati an avatar, an incarnation of Radharani, as her captivating beauty was like graceful verve of goddess of fortune. She was as young and fervent as fresh morning dew dancing on the back of subtle slick leaves behind the curtains of oozing dawn. She was the younger of the two queens, comprising much of the age difference between King Vajravira as well. Kusumati returned to her room after performing all rituals with her friends and began to swirl around in a circular course cheerfully. She was still humming the songs she heard during the rituals. Her sweet voice echoed in the entire chamber as she flicked her arms from one wrapping to the other. Ah, what a wonderful day it has been. I just wish this festival never came to an end. And also, I just wonder why it falls only once a year. Why do we celebrate Radha's birth only for once in the whole year, while she always had a new birth every time she would meet Shri Krishna? Said Kusumati, resting her head on the balustrade of her room's balcony. Her eyes glittered as she sophisticatedly articulated Radha's ardent love for Krishna. She looked around the palace, humming a subtle, soft, cheerful tune. Everything that begins should better be over at the right point of time, else it loses its charm and fascination for the joy, merriment and celebration it brings along every year. Would you wait for it so excitingly then? And would anyone for that matter also feel like plunging into the grand preparations like this one single day again and again in the same year? Said Jayanti in an edifying tone with an untainted smile on her pleasing face. And anyway, our beloved princess is already blessed with an amazingly godly sight that can not only pierce through time but also can capture a glance of objects traveling miles and miles away, which is not possible for an ordinary person to even imagine to possess. You should cherish your gift, princess, rather than worrying about other things that keep shifting with time. Intervened Vishakha in order to make Kusumati conscious of her own exceptional power of extraordinary sight that could pierce through any object to see beyond. And if she had to wind back in time, it would travel back to the past whenever she wished. But only once in 30 days, as confined by the condition for the usage of the boon. The power was bestowed upon her by gods as she was the gift from them to her father for battling with them against the demons. We have had enough for the day. The princess must be tired, said Jayanti, looking at Vishakha, sounding a bit cross at her proposal. You should spare it for some other time, princess, she said to Kusumati. What other day could be more auspicious than today? Intruded Vishakha frenetically. So, what do you see in this beautiful night, dear Kusumati? Asked Vishakha curiously. She sounded more excited than Kusumati could be about this adventure. Kusumati first smiled sophisticatedly and then lifted her beady big eyes roofed with shimmery eyelids towards the starry sky. Her glossy eyeballs were reflecting the soft light of innumerable dazzling stars as they were moving across the sky with a constant shift. Her powerful sight pierced through the layers and layers of clouds, from silver to grey, then greyer to silent dark, and then the end of the darkest layer where it splits apart into unceasingly brightness of a new world. But suddenly it struck with something unusual, something it had never discovered before, and something it perhaps had longed for. It got stuck on an imposing pale purple spark rustling through the cottony clouds in the interiors. Kusumati's heart started pounding, and an eccentric sensation running through her blood veins made her numb as she noticed a godly person of exceptional beauty splendidly sitting on a shining coach driven by 49 white and purple horses. The long silver white strips of his satiny scarf waved around in every corner of the sky. His sharp, glassy eyes were traveling across the sky in such profound manner as if he was keeping some kind of watch over everything, and his pink leafy lips perched onto each other in the most captivating smile that would even lure the attention of the most beautiful nymph of the heaven. Kusumati felt extremely helpless to take her eyes off this powerful and heroic personality unless she was shaken and called out by her friends to return to her consciousness. Kusumati drew herself back with a stomp of sigh in her heart, as if somebody had pulled out a stabbed weapon from it. "Princess Kusumati, where are you lost?" asked Vishakha. "Why don't you tell us what you saw?" questioned Jayanti. Kusumati could not answer any of their questions. "I hope you have not seen anything unpleasing, my dear. Are you fine?" Jayanti asked quite tactfully this time, but in vain. There was a slight frown on her face. Kusumati, unable to express, or rather unwilling to speak anything, demanded lonesome and went to bed, falling slowly but surely in a sound sleep. It was midnight. While Kusumati was still slumbering, perhaps sailing into some gratifying dream, suddenly her room started filling with that same pale purple spark she witnessed through the skies. A soothing cold breeze blew around her bed, slithering upon her radiant cheeks, smoothing down to her glistening neck, wafting away the thin strands of her hair, then onto her slender bare arms. This outlandish sensation trickled her out from the state of unconsciousness. She leisurely opened her lids, that were heavy with the slumber, as she tried to wake up completely from her deep sleep. Then she looked straight with her eyes opened wide and slowly pushed herself away from the soft, cozy pillow. No sooner did she sit upright than her heartbeat descended after having found the same very heroic sky god standing right in front of her. "I am Lord Pavan, the Lord of the Wind. You have been calling me desperately since long. Hence, I could not resist answering your prayers and having to come here." The Lord of Wind introduced himself in a mesmerizing, serene tone to Kusumati and explained his presence in her room. There was no doubt that even he was totally entranced by her beauty and grace. Kusumati looked deep into his eyes and seemed forgotten about the rest of the world. The intricate moves of the graceful couple looked like a pair of majestic swans perched on the wet grass, by a sterile pond impending to tie the inviolable knot, while the patches of cloud floating around them weaved into an elegant veil on surroundings to obstruct this view, secured for them, just for them. On hearing the calls of her friend, Jayanti and Vishakha, Kusumati got up abruptly, clinching her soft, silky drape around her sleek, bell-shaped nape. She looked around in an astonishment and heaved a deep sigh, murmuring to herself, it was just a dream." She was perhaps in a deep dilemma to either thank goodness for it to be merely a dream, or to feel dejected about this not being the one, as only her heart knew how much she longed to see that sky god again. The days were passing by as usual, But Kusumati was still apprehensive about her dream. She could hardly concentrate on other things than just being lost almost all the time. She was helpless even using her power, as few days were still too over for retrieving it back again. But things still seemed fine with her best friends around, at least making her laugh and play, until one day. While plucking crimson grape cluster from Snehalata grapevine garden at the backyard of the palace, Kusumati realized that something was just not right with her. As she burnished her hand against her sleek abdomen, she could feel a subtle movement of something curling inside. She called out louder to Jayanti and Vishakha, who were up on the loft to collect the most luscious fruits from the highest and the thickest wine. Jayanti and Vishakha immediately climbed down to the queen in their vital concern. All the three friends sat on a stone table in the garden, where Kusumati thoroughly narrated the incident of Lord Pavan to them, and fragmentarily burst into tears, muttering down in her throat with intense deep sobs. "It wasn't a dream, it wasn't a dream." Howsoever awe-stricken by the revelation of the incidents, Jayanti and Vishakha, being the most loyal friends, had to forthwith devise a plan to take a way out of that tough state of affairs for her loving princess. The next day, Kusumati sent a message for King Vajraveer that she had dreamt of goddess Kulkarni, the goddess of canalizing menstruation in women and creating life and childbirth, who had ordered her for a pilgrimage of 9 months to eliminate the bad aura of Rahu that had shoddily been affecting her Venus. King Vajraveer was sure of the meaning of this message, since this was the very reason he had been advised to hold off coupling with Queen Kusumati during that particular period of time. He instantly went to meet Kusumati in her chamber. He could convincingly espouse Queen Kusumati's will, hence ordered for the arrangements to be made for her leave-taking. "Do come back soon as these 9 months get over. The whole kingdom and I will very much wait for your safe return," said the king, amorously looking deep in Kusumati's eyes. "I promise, I will," she replied. Kusumati left with Jayanti and Vishakha, along with few soldiers escorting them. They first reached Rishi Bhrigu's ashram, from where Kusumati returned the soldiers, assuring them that she would be safe staying in that ashram for the day and then would continue her journey along without being escorted by any royal treatment. In the name of a privilege, the three of the ladies proceeded further and reached Acharya Shri Guru Kripa's Kali Peeth ashram, a distant monastery for sages situated on the banks of river Ganga. The ashram looked safe from the eyes of commoners to be seen around easily. It had the shacks in the rows for the refuge and shelter for the visitors and pilgrims. Thus they decided to stay in that ashram and conceal their real identities, as in their names and belongings, from the sages of ashram, in order that they would not know that they were royalty. Consequently, Jayanti and Vishakha had to cook up a new story by introducing themselves as the residents of Gayadham ashram, who were on a pilgrimage along with Devi Parnavi, the falsified name for Kusumati, the pregnant wife of a sage who had decided to leave his pregnant wife with her friends to be safe from hazardous challenges that could meet during the journey, by leaving them on the way to continue his expedition to greater Himalayas. Back in time, then Kusumati sat under an enormous peepal tree with her mind re-entering in the present moment, while Jayanti and Vishakha were still discussing to find an appropriate abode for the child. "We would search in very nearest village," said Jayanti. "It has to be accomplished this month, since this is the 9th and the last one. Make sure the family should be well loaded with every royal facility to take care of our prince," said Vishakha in her particular restrained, raw manner. Being ethically rich is more of the essence than just catering for the royal amenities for a moral rearment and complete upbringing. Rest is up to the will of Krishna, spoke Jayanti, correcting Vishakha's biased opinion. But Vishakha would not simply give up. She would keep entangling Jayanti in her inane hysterical tiffs. Their chattering had filled the barren path of the narrow stony hills as they marched on to their pursuit.